Hello lovelies, in this video we're going to be looking at ecological succession and managing succession for your AQA A-Level in Environmental Science. Now if you want to make sure you can recall all of these facts, all of the different things that are done, then over on the website there are loads of free multiple choice questions to help you revise.
A-Level Environmental Science. Topic 1. The Living Environment. Lesson 13. Ecological Succession and Managing Succession. In this lesson, we're going to be talking through the process of ecological succession and how this process can be managed to try and conserve species under threat. There are lots of key terms in this lesson that you will be expected to know for your exam, so make sure as we go through you are adding them to your glossary. We are going to start by defining succession. Succession is the process in which species colonise an uninhibited area. The stages within this process are called sears. Sears are given different names depending on the location that succession is occurring. If succession is happening in a water body, it's called hydrosear. If succession is happening on a rock, it's called lithosear. And if succession is happening on sand, it's called summersear. Just a note to be really careful here, as these two words are very similar to hydrosphere and lithosphere. But if you write those words in the exam when you are talking about succession, you won't get any marks. The process of succession is an important process to know in detail, as it could be quite a large mark question in the exam. The key terms in here are essential and will be where the marks are awarded. Succession starts when a pioneer species colonises an uninhabited area. This area will have no soil, no other life forms, very little nutrients and low water availability, making it a hostile environment to survive in. For this reason, pioneer species tend to be organisms such as lichens and mosses, who have quite low habitat requirements and so can manage to survive here. The presence of pioneer species alters the abiotic conditions slightly. This might be a thin layer of soil, or increased nutrients or water availability to make them slightly less hostile. This allows new species to be able to colonise. When they do, they tend to be better adapted to the conditions, so outcompete the pioneer species. They also alter the abiotic features of the environment. Some make it even less hostile, so more new species can colonise. This process continues in this way until a final community is reached consisting of the dominant species, known as the climax community. This climax community should not change if the climate of the area remains the same. One of the most common terrestrial climax communities are forests, and the type of forest you get depends on the climate of the area. An important fact to remember is that as succession continues, biodiversity should be increasing in that area. Abiotic features that determine the climax community will include rainfall and temperature, as well as light availability. If an area experiences regular rainfall, then it will usually become a forest. If precipitation and water availability are a limiting factor, then it is more likely to become a grassland-type habitat. The temperature helps to determine which type of forest the area will become. Warmer climates in the tropics will give way to tropical rainforests, whereas the more moderate temperatures in the mid-latitudes will grow temperate broadleaf forests. During ecological succession, the abiotic conditions are changing, and it is important that you can describe how. The most important thing to remember is that conditions are becoming less hostile and volatile as succession continues. Temperate extremes will go from very large extremes to more stable. Water availability, variable to stable. Light levels, usually high to low, as larger plants that come later in succession provide shade. Nutrient availability, low to high, as soil forms and more DOM is available. Rates of change, rapid at first but slow down and eventually stabilise at the climax community. There have been questions in past exams where examiners have asked about succession in a particular location, for example sand dunes or a pond. For each location, we recommend writing down some steps that would be important during succession there and building up a bit of a fact file. For example, sand dunes require stabilisation before larger plants can grow there, which usually comes from root binding. Ponds will reduce in depth and eventually dry out completely, On a bare rock, soil formation would be vital. This is known as primary succession, which is defined as happening on bare land. There is another type of succession called secondary succession. This process is much faster as it happens in areas where soil is already present, even if there's nothing else. This allows the process to speed up, as the time isn't needed to form soil. This will usually occur in an area where there has been a forest fire or other natural disaster that has removed all of the vegetation. If the climate has not changed, then it should reach the same climax community as it would have in primary succession. Managing succession. Succession can be managed to conserve biodiversity and create a plagio-climax community. This is where humans are actively preventing succession from reaching the natural climax community in order to conserve a species currently present. If we were to stop intervening, the natural succession would proceed and the species we were conserving would most likely be outcompeted as new species colonise. In order to deflect succession in this way, multiple management techniques can be used to stop larger species colonising and outcompeting the ones we want to protect. Techniques include coppicing, cutting down trees to ground level, mowing, removing any larger species, keeping grass from overtaking an area, grazing, letting livestock graze on larger species, and burning. This is used quite often on moor habitats, where larger plants are burned intermittently to stop them colonising or taking over. You may also need to manage animal populations as part of plagio-climax maintenance, either by removing them from the habitat or culling if they are putting the species you are trying to conserve at risk. Hopefully you'll be able to get out on a field trip and measure succession using a transect. If not, it can be found out and about if you live near sand dunes. They're a really good place to see it. Often, succession comes with a research methods-based question asking how you would measure succession over an area.
Ouch! This is why in some videos I explain scratches.